When the Lich King's control of his Death Knights was broken, his former champions sought revenge for the horrors committed under his command. After their vengeance was won, the Death Knights found themselves without a cause and without a home. One by one they trickled into the land of the living in search of a new purpose. Death Knights, first introduced in Wrath of the Lich King, are melee warriors with plate armor. Dark magic is used by these warriors to boost their power. The Death Knight can conjure unholy, blood and frost spells using a rune system of magic. Previously, the presence of a level 55 plus character on the player's account of any realm was a requirement for producing a Death Knight. That condition, however, has been abolished as of December 2014. In World of Warcraft, the Death Knight is the first hero class. Death Knights begin at level 55 in the Ebon hold over the Eastern Plaguelands, with a variety of spells and abilities at their disposal, as well as a unique set of equipment. They have a complete set of rare gear ready for Outland as they leave Ebon hold. They learn to master the Death Knight's power and how to utilize it for the Lich King's purposes via Death Knight specific tasks throughout the Necropolis and the adjacent territories. Quests lead them outside of the Necropolis and into the Scarlet Enclave. Players can only construct one Death Knight per world before patch 5.3.0 if they already have a level 55 character and the Wrath of the Lich King on their account. On a single world, players may now build many Death Knights. Death Knights may now be created in World of Warcraft Mists of Pandaria and World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth allied races, thanks to patch 8.3. Several prominent necromancer groups go under the moniker Death Knight. These orders have a lot in common, such as riding horses with horned heads and having a lot of the same skills. Playable Death Knights on the other hand are Scourge Death Knights. Gul'dan created the initial Death Knights as strong horde troops for Orgrim Doomhammer. The souls of killed Shadow Council warlocks were implanted into the bodies of fallen Stormwind Knights, the first of whom was Terran Gorefiend to produce these Death Knights. These ghastly fiends were not battle-hardened soldiers like the Scourge's current Death Knights. Instead, they were crafty necromancers with superior intelligence and immense magical power. They often used terror tactics, reanimating the bodies of enemy warriors killed in combat to serve as mindless zombie henchmen. During and after the Second War, the majority of these Death Knights were either slain by the Alliance or converted into Liches by Kil'jaeden. Years after Draenor was destroyed, the tremendously strong Lich King produced a new race of Death Knights, evil, rune-wielding Scourge soldiers. Prince Arthas Menethil, formerly a renowned paladin of the Silver Hand who gave his soul to claim the Runeblade Frostmourne in a desperate endeavor to rescue his people, was the first and greatest of them. The others are mostly other fallen paladins whose soul have been warped and tied to the Frozen Throne's will. These black champions, unlike Gul'dan's Death Knights, have unholy might, yet they lack free choice, and their thoughts are inextricably intertwined with and ruled by the Lich King's immense awareness. Despite the risk of losing their free will, some strong mortals are drawn to the prospect of immortality and willingly devote their souls to the Lich King's service in order to obtain it. This is exemplified by Baron Rivendare. The Death Knight's might and wrath have only risen in the years since Arthas smashed the Frozen Throne and united with the Lich King. These merciless crusaders of the damned are now anxiously awaiting the Lich King's order to wreak havoc on Azeroth once again. Unlike the Old Horse Death Knights, the Scourge's Death Knights are not restricted to using ranged spellcasting skills. Furthermore, these unstoppable Death Knights are far stronger, quicker, and more nimble than they were in life. In the field of war, however, both generations are equally devastating and terrible. The Lich King subsequently established a new force of Death Knights, the Death Knights of Acheras, to garrison the necropolis of Acheras, the Ebon Hold, with the ultimate goal of storming the Light's Hope Chapel and destroying the Origin Dawn. These Death Knights are liberated from the Lich King's control in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion and ally with their previous faction. The freshly released Death Knights have begun their march on Northrend, guided by the guiding sword of High Lord Darian Mograine and the strengthened Argent Crusade. The Knights of the Ebon Blade are a group of renegade Death Knights that rebelled against the Lich King following the Battle of the Light's Hope Chapel. In other words, player-created Death Knights. The Knights of the Ebon Blade, commanded by High Lord Darian Mograine, have joined forces with the Alliance and Horde with the assistance of High Lord Tyrion Fordring and the Knights of the Silver Hand, to fight their old ruler, the Lich King. After breaking free from the Scourge, they took Acheras, the Ebon Hold, as their primary stronghold. It should be emphasized that unlike the Alliance and Horde, the Knights of the Ebon Blade are not a distinct player group. According to their race faction, player-created Death Knights still belong to the Alliance or Horde in terms of gameplay. In general, the Death Knights is a hybrid melee class, similar to warriors, that mixes damage dealing with tanking. They have plate armor and can utilize two-handed blade weapons and dual wield them. They tank without shields, like druids and monks. Their tanking mechanics include a lot of armor and a lot of parrying chances. Death Knight tanks rely on a mix of high damage and high threat skills to survive. For both PvP and PvE scenarios, the Death Knight has 3 separate specialties. The differences between them are not as evident as they are for other classes. Notably, regardless of specialization, Death Knights may tank or do damage. However, careful selection is still necessary to support their chosen function. The roles were clarified in patch 4.0.1, with Blood being the tank specialty tree and the others becoming DPS. Blood greatly boosts the Death Knight's melee powers and damage, as well as his capacity to heal himself. Blood may also include several extremely valuable buffs and debuffs that the Death Knight may throw on others, as well as providing healing to the group and raids. Blood is considered the best tree for soloing and should be considered while leveling your Death Knight. Frost specializes on raising both AoE and single target damage while enhancing melee skills. It has several very potent direct damage abilities. The Death Knight's illnesses and damage over time spells are enhanced by Unholy, making them more powerful at AoE DPS. It also gives the Death Knight a permanent ghoul as a pet, a summonable gargoyle bodyguard and a more powerful illnesses. To control their spells and powers, Death Knights use a unique rune-based resource system. Using some abilities depletes 1 or more runes, resulting in a 10-second cooldown. The runes regenerate after the cooldown. The haste stat minimizes the time it takes for runes to cool down. Furthermore, anytime they utilize a rune ability against an adversary, a specific quantity of runic power is gained. Certain abilities that the Death Knight might perform while his or her runes are on cooldown deplete runic power. There is a certain quantity of runic power used by all skills that utilize it. The initial Death Knight player frame presented at BlizzCon was altered because of the comments indicated that it was not appropriate for showcasing rune power for players. The Death Knight may use rune forging to permanently enchant their weapons with enchants that are usually more potent than those accessible to other classes. The enchants function similarly to the permanent weapon upgrades granted by enchanting, except they are only self-only and tailored to the Death Knight class. The rune resource system has no bearing on them. Either rune forging or enchanting may be used to enchant a weapon, but not both. To forge a rune onto a weapon, a player must be within the range of a rune forge. It is difficult to remove a rune after it has been engraved on a weapon, however it may be modified at a rune forge. Furthermore, if a weapon is not soulbound, once it has been engraved with a rune, it cannot be exchanged. Rune forges may be discovered in the Ebon hold or within the metal dams in certain of the Icecrown questing zones. For any plate, armor wearing class, skinning and mining are natural alternatives. This enables for the creation of respectable armor and sometimes excellent weaponry as one progresses through the tiers. Death Knights who begin leveling in the mid-50s generally have to play catch up. As a result, they must go to multiple low-level zones in order to improve their mining ability. Death Knights with the non-blood specialization that need rapid potion heals and varied boosts from elixirs and flasks may find alchemy and herbalism handy. These professions are also useful for earning money and providing guild runs. Cooking is useful for non-healing classes in terms of non-combat health restoration and boost foods. For in-combat health regeneration and minimal downtime regeneration, any non-healing class should use first aid. Now, fishing is a fantastic way to improve your cooking skills. The Death Knight was originally conceived by Blizzard as an undead spellcaster unit that first appeared in Warcraft 2, Tides of Darkness. Rather than the usual undead warrior, this Death Knight may be defined as a horse-mounted lich. Years later, in Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos, Blizzard released a new Death Knight hero unit, which was reworked to fit the main qualities of the more classic Death Knight concept. Death Knights were previously paladin fighters that were eventually repurposed into a prestige class inside the Warcraft RPG. It is the Warcraft 3 counterpart to the Death Knight, which was introduced in World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King expansion and became the first hero class in the game. And that is the story of the Death Knight. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.